Good morning. I only have one cigarette left. I guess I'll smoke with you. Today's supposed to start with exercise. So I guess we're working up to that. If everything's going backwards, that's pretty weird considering time and space only seem to go forward. So I always wake up in collapsing realities. They rush forward and then snap. And then it's better. Or is it better? Like I get injured and then I can't go to work or school. And then the time I'm spent apart is exactly what I needed. And whatever I get interested in or whatever adds to it all. But then I get trapped apart. And then where do I go and what do I tie to next if I have to leave sooner or later? Like school or a job or find some way to do it here, which is the idea everyone needs to have so that you can wake up each day, but then have a routine, which is the whole idea behind COVID of, hey, everybody has time to get your shit together. I gotta do everything all fucking weird because of my position, whatever the fuck that position is. I don't think it's dog eater style. I don't think they got a name for it. The star tetrahedron. Where, like my post before I went to bed last night, after watching myself as others have been watching me, I see all these different sides, even though I say, there ain't no sides. Of being in pain, all of a sudden, extreme pain out of nowhere. I guess I'll get to that. Um, I know what it's like for people who are in pain, chronically, one way or another, because I've had multiple major injuries where I had a car accident that seemed very suspicious, but in any case, as far as I could tell, it killed me. They brought me back, and steering wheel was ripped off the column. I didn't let that shit go, and my arm was just laid over in the passenger seat, holding onto it still, and they pulled me out of the car. The engine was like all the way past the axle. I mean, the telephone pole. And I cut it off. I had to replace the son of a bitch. I guess. I mean, it was replaced in the morning. I don't know what it looked like. Obviously, it wasn't good no more. Broke my elbow trying to skateboard once. And trying to foot race, all drunk, across somebody's yard. Tore all the ligaments in my ankle once. The next yard had a metal, or not a metal, but a concrete, like, little angle thing. Because the yards go up a hill, so then you have the yard and a driveway, and then a little concrete incline for the next yard. And I didn't see that, hit that concrete with full force with 1 foot. Last night when I was in extreme pain, my mother gave me a little bit of medication. One of the things I used to have a medical card for, but I need to get it renewed. And suddenly, I feel like myself and I'm connected to my body. I can feel all the aches and pains and I want to work out. Reminds me of American Beauty, right? He quits his job and then just works out in the garage and gets high all day. Reminds me I need to go for a jog or something, clear out my lungs, do some stretches. Even though my elbow, I believe it was the same elbow, was the one. Yeah, you can see it's all swollen. Well, yeah, it is swollen. It's hard to tell the lighting or whatever, but it fucking hurts. This is the one I fractured, but it took mainly it was the tendons for like 6 months. My arm was stuck like this, and that was when I lived away from home and had to like find a job, and I was just scurrying about, unable to get a grip at one other point in my life. And it took like 6 months to a year for me to stretch my arm out, and then yesterday, just all of a sudden, uh, I can't straighten my arm all the way, and it hurts like a son of a gun. I didn't do anything whatsoever. I just sat here. I cleaned up the space and helped mom boil some eggs and descaled the coffee pot with the light still on. So, god dang. The message for today is a funny one, especially as I look up to a link from some other website. Today's message is about the Watchers. Me, Josh, namely being the number one watcher and not a follower necessarily, but I had to follow along and gather all the stuff in order to find out that, yeah, all eyes on me. Oh, wait, you're the number one watcher. Well, how are we going to get anywhere if the number one watcher is watching all of us, but we're watching him, but everyone's stuck in between is, and this is a hell of a Knights of the Round Table shit. Because obviously I'm really high profile. But there's so many that have a position that are famous people or well known because of their status. And then there's uh, those that are unseen that nobody knows who they are. And then there's all the regular people, like, 7.5 billion people between here and there. And suddenly last night, before I go deeper into that, the medicine started to kick in and I started to see things a little differently. But just as I always have, and the problem's still the same, being like, I see you. You're doing a live. You might as well be in the same room talking to me. And I can sit here and be talking to you. And even if they send the message to you, okay, great. We're into each other really hard. And I could have a channel and do the same thing as you're doing. But then the same weird thing, either way, would be, okay, so what, you send me an email or whatever, like, or I do to you, like, hey, you want to hook up? Well, for one, I got no resources to get there. And if you provide everything, okay, so I come hang out with you for a weekend or a week. Then the question is, okay, well, as weird as it sounds, do you want to keep me or, am I comfortable here? Okay, then what's next? Then, oh shit, now the whole world's on both our shoulders, but it was just fine when we were separate. We're stable. It's all good. So maybe we should just never meet. And so that's really difficult. But the Watchers, in one thing, says that they're angelic beings, right? Uh, but mostly it's in the book of Enoch. But that's all tied to this shit that I'm going through, and why, of all the books of the Bible now, that's the most interesting and important one. I should probably go through that one again. Because in the stories that aren't part of the stories that put the story together, well, so then Cain leaves the Garden of Eden, right? And then 3 angels come to him and curse him so that nobody can kill him. So he has to drink blood, and he can't, like, he has to hide from the light, right? I think that's the 3 curses. But he is the light because he's the only one that's ever left the garden, and everybody out there's a savage. Might as well, they're all animals or whatever civilization is. And so then he's starving or whatever because he doesn't know, like, he doesn't just drink blood, like, that's kind of weird. It's like getting contacts for the first time, and you're like, what? I gotta touch my eyeball? And you're like, ah, and most people are like, oh, I can't do that. That's gross, whatever, But then after you do it a few times, especially when you're getting ready for work, and you're like, I gotta get to work, but, I don't have a choice. Then, you can do it. I suppose that's the thing behind being a vampire, huh? Getting used to it. So then in part of the story, then he meets Lilith, Adam's first wife. They got kicked out of the garden or left the garden first. And so then those two get together. And Cain being the first, the only antediluvian, the first vampire of all vampires, because eventually he finds he can make vampires with his blood. But he's the oldest one. And and the first. But then him and Lilith have a child, and that child is named Enoch. And Enoch creates the first civilization, even though there's all these people outside of the garden in civilization, apart from civilization, as tribes, or whatever it may be. So the Garden of Eden technically comes into the middle of the story, but we don't know what the outside world looks like and what year it is. It could be yesterday. I wonder where Lilith is. But then that's the twisted part of the story. If it's the same guy, that's Adam, that's the snake, that's God, that's the tree, that's got to be Eve too, and then Cain and Abel. But then he kills himself. But then there's a third child. They have the child of Seth. But then Seth supposedly ends up being the people of civilization, of the common ones, technically. But then the story keeps flipping around upside down, and so you can't really tell because they keep stirring the pot, right? But then so Enoch creates the first civilization. But then technically, if that's true, tying it to the known texts, even though, it's a linear story, but it's all these different stories, then he would be May the first, or me. But in the vision that I had as the first emperor of Sumeria, as me or May, however you want to pronounce it, then he comes later on, more like Nimrod, or God, what's the other name for him? Excuse me. But then, so the Watchers are angels, right? So they had to have been made by God, which means they had to have seen the image. In Jewish texts. But the apocryphal book Enoch, that's the one that talks all about angels. Where, okay, so then all of us that are awakened are the angelic beings. But then there's two sides of that. And that's also why the Masons represent it together and apart, because just because you became a Mason doesn't mean you're ever going to wake up and see why you're what's going on. And then if you do, well, you're already trapped in the building, technically, not supposed to talk about anything, and you got all the religious texts around. But then now you're going through magical rites and order like knights, but then it's tied to magic, and now okay, well, what do you do about all that? And then just walk around society like I'm normal. It's nothing. I gotta go to practice magic school. That's just one way to put it, right? Because the thing is, nobody knows who's going to wake up and who won't. That's always been a problem. Those that can see and those that can't. But those that can't, God's still guiding them. But then that's why has always been tied to the shadow aspect of people as the dark side. And why they had to make the image of Christ the light side. But then when you meet him, then now he's Lucifer, now he's on the back end. Now he's on the wrong side. But now he's in me. Oh my God, get it off, I'm on fire. But then just to go to it and to bow down before it and whatever, well, it's all tied to all this other religious stuff in between. Then once you put all that stuff together, you're like, what the fuck is going on here? So then the Watchers are also tied to two different directions. The angels who betrayed God. Otherwise, they'd also just come right up to him. But they're afraid and jealous and comparing, and so then it's all weird. If any one of us could stand out. And so the tide of the Masons, that's why here it also shows key characteristics. And what I'm reading is they're described as angels, sometimes called the sons of God, sent to watch over humans. So then that ties directly to Masonry, particularly as the Masons. So I got a father my own fathers, and brother my own brothers, and mother my own mothers. Motherers. Well, they hide what they know and can see about any of the stuff, and I have to come out with all the letters and shit, and they just put it down in street signs and topography and maps and stuff, and put it on the ground. So it's like, so everybody's looking out here at the stuff and not attributing it. So then they're safe, right? To some degree. But then I have to hold it on both ends and in between. And so, yeah, so I'm the boss, but I don't know shit. And that's really tricky. And so obviously, my employees would really fucking piss me off sometimes at the same time. What? They got all my money and they won't give it to me? Like, oh, well, they want me to do something? Well, why doesn't anybody come up and tell me? Oh, they're not allowed to. Oh, fuck, this is a dumbass game. I don't want to be a watcher, but I can't ever get out of sight. Sons of bitches. And the comedy side of it. Of how, if this is true, like, so how, what came to me last night is that, like, following the trail of the ego, right, which is tied to a lot of these symbols that have to do with me, but my symbol also always just automatically pushes it off to the side, which is weird. But it is explained in the process of who I am and the weird position I've been given it by the designs of the universe, is how last night it put it, he is me, but I'm Ro. But then all roads lead to Rome. But I came before all of the books and all of that as the image arrived. But in order to even see it, I had to be given all of it and I had to go search it all out. And it's always, yeah, me comes afterward, bro. Well, how the fuck can I always get ahead of myself? But everything I look at, I see me like narcissist, but not. And then portraying it, okay, see, but I'm Ro. And he's me. And God punished the watchers. But I'm the ultimate watcher and also the ultimate regular. But what's ultimate? I mean, that word could be taken out. But this is a place where everyone has to find their position, and their position should come more or less naturally, just as mine has, even though mine is always say everything pushes me off. It's like the more I do, the more in chains I am. But then, as much as I could organize and strategize my life, then that's out of place too, especially if Ro always comes before me, but everything I put down, then all the other watchers can see what I'm doing, and then they can set it up however they want to, but then I can't get there, but I gotta wait for it to come up. So God punished watchers, confining them and bringing the great flood to cleanse the earth and their giant offspring, which I think has to do with the tower, if you want to call it that, of this page and what's been built. Because it's supposed to cut everyone and leave a trail of information so everyone could get caught up as much as they feel like or want to, because it has to come to everyone naturally at the same time as each one has to lead themselves. But there's so much information, so much stuff, and tied to me, tied to all this stuff. At any time, somebody can just take one of those playlists and look into it however they want to, listen to parts if they want to, find out information about just like, oh, this is about the American flag, and all of a sudden they find four things down, and there's something about some obscure Mayan god, and that seems out of place. But then they watch that, and it connects to the flag, and it connects some parts that have to do with them, with each person as a part of this story everywhere. But we're all tied to this stuff. If I'm tied to this stuff, and it automatically pushes it off to the side, it says, yeah, okay, next, yeah, but next. But those that are on the inside out the other way around, they go, oh, yeah, I'm testing Halapoka. Watch this. And then they get possessed by me. But I'm Ro. So I'm always experiencing on the pole, but everything I experience, then I got the whole thing. Okay, off the side, next part, 18,666. Yeah, I'm +1. I'm the +1. So it's off to the side, off to the side, off the side. So it's like I'm building the road, but in reverse. And everything chains me back into myself. And so then I just have to move and go. But where and what do I make if that's a symbol of my existence in particular? But those that came before me were taught to do that in a different way, or taught themselves so that they can stand by me, but then move the perspective and make the magic of what's behind a lot of music and art. And where my problem is, where it all sticks to me and none of it can stick. So yeah, the Teflon Don, none of it can stick, but nobody can hit me, but everything sticks, and everything I touch is like creates another bullet, but it's double edged, so it hits me too. But it's like I'm Deadpool, sort of, as a concept. But that all this ties back to the mind, ultimately, because obviously you don't want to take any physical bullets. And, well, since we're on Watchers, let's see what else it says before I close this out about the Watchers being, yeah. Oh, yeah, the all seeing eye. Okay, look. Now you're there. You've been there the whole time. Okay. Now you're watching us. We're watching you. Okay, what are you going to do? You got any tricks, huh? Since we taught you all your tricks, or all these tricks that aren't you? So, okay, how's it feel to be everything and nothing? Yeah, you can prove your God. Okay, now what are you going to do to prove your God? Good jokes. The Watcher story explains the presence of evil and giants, Nephilim, before the flood, offering a cosmic explanation for human suffering and sin. It highlights themes of spiritual rebellion, divine sovereignty, and the boundaries between the divine and human realms. Yeah, the boundary. They became captivated by human women, broke their celestial vows, and descended to earth. Oh, good. Does that mean I'm going to get laid sooner or later? God dang. So I've been wondering, is there any girls in this place? I mean, outside of this black device thingy? Their union with women produced monstrous giants, the Nephilim, who brought violence and chaos. They taught humanity's secrets of metallurgy, weapons, cosmetics, makeup, and sorcery, magic, but further corrupting the world. And so that's why I'm here to help that and turn it around. So the makeup, in a sense, betrays. And how are you going to make up if everyone's been caught red-handed? And if they're innocent, well, then they'd just be able to come up like an animal or whatever, or a child. But then they'd always have to go back to where they come from. Because I couldn't keep them. But they'd just come up to me like I was one of them. Yeah. Yeah, marry human women. I disobeyed God by descending to earth. Oh, dang it. I had to come here. It wasn't my fault. They just kept piling it on. Oh, but how can I disobey God? And how can I fix this earth thingy? Descended earth, marrying human women. Okay. Yeah. I'm always remarrying and renewing our vows. But we never get to the bedroom or be able to cook together. And teaching forbidden knowledge, leading to the giant offspring called the Nephilim, which is why, okay, yeah, so it's all taught, but then anybody who comes to my page or whatever is already documented in some other database of who's watching all the spiritual people and what people do with this stuff. At the same time as the other opposition of AI, of anyone watches one of the stories or whatever, and then they're like, I'm gonna make a new version. And then they do an AI version and trying to corrupt the story at the same time, giving more options for how it can be balanced and fixed overall. And see, the Nephilim, that's tied to the mind concept of each of us being able to go to somebody else's page or whatever and be like, ooh, that's mine. Now I got it. Look, it's me. And so it's the ego beating the ego by the ego standing next to the ego but I'm not egotistic, or that's what's weird about all the stories about like narcissists looking in the pool and not seeing his face. Yeah, but it wasn't my face. But it's all the stuff that they wanted me to face. But I had to pull it out, and that makes everyone else have to face it. So that I'm past that. But I can still work on it because it's part of everybody's story. But anyone can get stuck on one part of the story in one book and be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this one. But yeah, that's only gonna work for so long until you reach a dead end. If I went through all of it and still sitting here, we all will be like, yeah. So what? I don't know. What? So yeah, I watch hers. It's more entertaining that way. Mine's boring. Let's see. Anything else? It's tied to Daniel in the Bible. Let's see. Then it's tied to enacting divine judgment. The holy heavenly figures sent to observe and enact divine judgment, notably on King Nebuchadnezzar. See, but that's weird. If so, I'm the one that wrote all the rules and laws, and right out in front of everyone. But I can change them all the time. But then everything else is trying to change them, and so and he created a giant pillar, or whatever, with all the rules on it, so that anybody that comes to town or whatever has to immediately come into the center of town, while everyone can watch them walk in and then read the rules, and then on the pillar, and then now you can go around town and do whatever you're going to do, but it's there. And so if you're breaking any rules, well, everyone in town's watching you. They all saw you come in, and they're gonna be watching where you go and gossiping all around town, and then or gonna watch you leave or whatever. Or remember, when you come back, you don't know who saw you come in last time in the town that didn't say anything or whatever, but then later on they heard, oh yeah, so that person that was in the red cape that came to town last week, yeah, I heard this about him. And you never know what's true or not true. And then so then when that person, and it ties everybody's stories together. So that's what I got on the watches this morning. I'll see you later. Maybe.